The wind howled through the barren, snow-covered landscape, carrying with it a biting chill that pierced through every layer of clothing. The mother and her young daughter trudged forward, their faces pale from the cold, their bodies numb with exhaustion. They had been walking for what felt like an eternity, but the landscape never changed. It was just endless white, a frozen wasteland stretching as far as the eye could see. There was nothing here. No life, no warmth. Just the deadly grip of winter. The mother's heart felt heavy, burdened with hopelessness. Her daughter clung to her side, her small hands trembling in the frigid air. They had no food left, no water. The bitter cold had taken away their strength, and the mother knew they were running out of time. She glanced at her daughter's face, thin, pale, and tired, and knew that if they didn't find help soon, they would both perish. She had heard stories of humans, of their cities and warm homes, but she had never imagined she would meet one like this. Desperation clung to her every step, urging her to take any chance, any hope. The air around her seemed to close in, suffocating her with the weight of survival. She needed to do something, anything, to save her daughter. And then, as if by fate, she saw him, a figure in the distance, a silhouette against the bright snow, slowly moving toward them. Her heart skipped a beat. A human, a real human. Was this a dream, or had they finally found someone who could help? She pushed forward, mustering the last of her strength to move toward him. The human stopped as she approached, his eyes scanning her and the girl. His face was cold, unreadable, but there was something in his gaze, something that made her feel both afraid and hopeful. She didn't have time for fear, not now. This was their only chance. She reached into her coat and pulled out the only thing she had left to offer. Her daughter, her precious daughter, the only thing she had left in the world. With trembling hands, the mother knelt down and spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Take her. Keep her warm. Give her a future. I beg you." The human's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, neither of them moved. The mother's heart raced as she waited for his response. Was he going to take her daughter? Was this their salvation? Or would he turn them away, just like everyone else had? The human did not reach for the girl. Instead, he stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "No, I won't take her from you." The mother froze, confusion swirling in her mind. What did he mean? Was this a cruel joke? She didn't have time to waste. Her daughter was freezing, and they were both on the edge of death. But then the human spoke again. "I can give you more than a blanket. I can give you a place where you can live. A future." The words hit her like a wave, washing over her in disbelief. A future? Could it be true? A home? A chance to survive? The desperation in her heart flared into something else, something she hadn't felt in so long: hope. She didn't know if she could trust him, but she had no other choice. With no warmth left to offer, she nodded, barely able to believe what she had just heard. The human's eyes softened as he extended his hand to her. "Come with me. You don't have to make this sacrifice." And with that, they began their journey into the unknown, following the human into a new world, one full of both hope and mystery. The cold had not relented, but for the first time in days, the mother felt a flicker of warmth. The human's offer hung in the air like a fragile promise, too good to be true. She looked at her daughter, who had started to shiver uncontrollably. The girl's small hand gripped her mother's tightly, her wide eyes filled with both fear and curiosity. Was this really happening? Could they trust this stranger? The human moved ahead, his footsteps crunching softly in the snow. His figure was distant, but there was something steady in his stride, something that made the mother feel they were no longer alone. Her heart, so heavy with fear and doubt, now began to thrum with a quiet hope. Still, her mind raced with questions. Why was he helping them? Was there something he wanted in return? The journey felt surreal. They walked in silence for what seemed like hours, with only the sound of their boots crunching through the deep snow breaking the stillness. The landscape around them remained the same, nothing but endless white. The trees were bare, their twisted branches standing like dark, skeletal hands reaching out of the frozen earth. It was hard to imagine that this place could ever hold warmth or life, or anything other than the biting cold. As they walked, the mother's thoughts drifted back to the moment when she had offered her daughter. She had not hesitated. There had been no other choice. The world outside had been unforgiving. and she had been willing to give anything to save the life of the only person she had left. But now, walking beside this human, the weight of that decision hung heavy on her heart. She had never expected to be given a second chance, after what felt like an eternity. They reached the edge of the snow-covered forest. There, hidden amongst the trees, was a large structure. It was unlike anything the mother had ever seen, unfamiliar yet strangely comforting. The building was nestled in a valley, surrounded by thick, green trees. The snow seemed to give way to a different world here, one that seemed untouched by the harsh winds of the outside. The human led them toward the structure, his presence no longer as mysterious but still commanding. As they entered, the warmth hit them like a wave. The mother took in a sharp breath, feeling her frozen limbs begin to thaw. The warmth was so overwhelming, so soothing, that she nearly collapsed. The inside was simple, yet inviting. There was a fire crackling in the hearth, and the soft scent of food filled the air. The human motioned for them to sit. He stepped back, watching them with an unreadable expression, as if waiting for something. The mother glanced at her daughter, who seemed equally amazed by the change in temperature. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the girl smiled a small, hesitant smile, but one that spoke volumes. "What is this place?" the mother finally asked, her voice trembling from more than just the cold. The human's eyes softened as he spoke. "It's a refuge, a place for those who have nowhere else to go." The mother's heart beat faster. This human, this stranger, had given them something more than they had ever dreamed of, a chance. But as she sat there, watching the fire flicker in the hearth, she knew the questions would never stop. Who was he really? Why had he chosen to help them? And what did he expect in return? But for now, in the small, quiet refuge, the warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. And for the first time in so long, the mother allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had found a home. The next few days passed in a blur, a strange mix of relief and unease settling into the mother's heart. The warmth of the fire, the food that never seemed to run out, the bed that was softer than anything she had ever imagined, all of it was overwhelming, almost too good to be true. And yet, despite the comfort surrounding her, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There were moments when the human's gaze lingered just a bit too long, or when he'd step into the shadows for hours without explanation. At night, as the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, the mother would lie awake, her thoughts spinning in a web of uncertainty. She watched her daughter, who had finally started to regain some of her lost strength, sleep peacefully beside her. The girl's face, once pale and drawn with hunger, was now rosy with health. The change was miraculous, and the mother wanted to believe in the goodness of this place, in the kindness of the human who had saved them. But the questions kept coming. She couldn't understand why the human had brought them here. Why had he chosen them? His actions seemed too generous, too selfless for someone with no agenda. Was he hiding something? Did he expect something in return that she couldn't see yet? One evening, after dinner, the human stood up from his chair and motioned toward the door. "There's something I want to show you," he said, his voice calm. But there was a flicker in his eyes, a sort of urgency that hadn't been there before. The mother hesitated, but the curiosity inside her was too strong to ignore. She nodded and stood, taking her daughter's hand as they followed him out into the cold night. The sky above was clear, and the stars sparkled like diamonds against the vast, dark canvas of the universe. It was peaceful here, almost serene, but the silence felt heavier than ever. They walked toward the edge of the property, where the human stopped and turned to face them. The moonlight cast long shadows over his face, making his expression hard to read. The mother stood silently, waiting for him to speak. "You must be wondering why I brought you here," the human said, breaking the silence at last. His voice was soft, but there was something heavy in it, as though he were sharing a secret that had been long buried. "The truth is, I wasn't always this way. I wasn't always the person who helped others." The words hung in the air, and the mother's heart skipped a beat. She had expected an explanation, but not one like this. She glanced at her daughter, who was clutching her hand tightly. Sensing the change in the atmosphere, the human took a deep breath, his eyes darkening as he continued. "I came here after I lost everything. After I failed." His gaze moved to the ground, and for a moment, He seemed lost in his own thoughts. The mother didn't know what to say. She had no idea what he was referring to, but something in his tone made her want to listen. To understand. "I've spent my life trying to fix the mistakes I've made," he said slowly, looking up at her. "When I saw you two, I saw a chance to do something right, to offer what I never had a second chance." The mother's mind raced as the truth began to unfold. This human, this stranger who had taken them in, wasn't just some wanderer looking for company. He was running from something, trying to make amends. She could see it in his eyes now, the weight of a past he couldn't escape. The world around them felt suddenly smaller. The walls of their new home no longer as comforting as they once were. But despite the uncertainty that crept into her mind, one thing was clear. They were no longer just survivors in the cold, lost in a world that had forgotten them. They were part of something much larger, something more complex than she could have ever imagined. "Thank you," she whispered, not fully understanding the depth of his words, but feeling the sincerity in them. The human nodded, his face softening. "We all have our demons, but we can choose to fight them." He gave a small, sad smile before turning to lead them back inside. As they walked back to the warmth of the house, the mother's mind swirled with new questions. Who was this man really? What kind of demons did he carry? And how would their lives change now that they were here, in this strange, hidden world? The following days passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. The warmth of the house had become a constant comfort, but so had the unease that lingered in the air. The mother and daughter settled into the life the human had offered them, though the questions remained unanswered. They spent their days exploring the land surrounding the house, finding solace in the lush greenery that seemed to defy the harshness of the world they had left behind. The trees here were tall and thick, their branches heavy with vibrant leaves that rustled softly in the wind. It was a peaceful place, a place of hope, but there was something unsettling about it, something hidden beneath the surface. One afternoon, as the mother and daughter ventured further into the woods, they stumbled upon a small stream that ran through the valley. The water was clear, the sound of it flowing over smooth stones, soothing and gentle. The mother knelt by the stream, dipping her fingers into the cool water, marveling at how different everything felt here. It was as if they had stepped into another world, one where warmth, safety, and life still existed. She looked up at her daughter, who was crouched nearby, watching the water flow by. The girl's face was brighter, her cheeks flushed with health, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. But even in the midst of this newfound peace, the mother couldn't escape the feeling that something was still off. The human had been kind, and yet there was always something just beyond her understanding. His eyes held a depth of sadness, a weight he had never fully shared. And despite the refuge he had provided, the mother couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this place, something hidden beneath the surface of the calm. As if sensing her thoughts, the human appeared from behind a cluster of trees. His presence was like a shadow, silent and sudden, yet somehow reassuring. He stepped toward them, his eyes locked on the mother as if searching for something in her face. "Do you like it here?" he asked, his voice gentle, but with an edge to it, as if he were testing her reaction. The mother nodded slowly, still uncertain about how to respond. It's beautiful, but there's something you're not telling us." The human's expression darkened slightly, his gaze shifting to the ground before meeting her eyes again. "I've told you all I can," he said quietly. "The rest, it's not easy to explain. I made this place for you, for those who need it. But it's not just a sanctuary. It's a reminder of what I've lost." His voice broke for a moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air between them. The mother felt a pang of empathy for him, but there was also a growing suspicion in her heart. What was he really running from? Why had he chosen them? She couldn't help but feel like they were caught in a web, drawn into something bigger than they could understand. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice softer now, as if she were afraid to push him too far. The human hesitated, and for a long moment, he seemed lost in thought, staring out into the trees as if searching for the right words. Finally, he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been here before. I've seen this place, and I've seen what it can do." The mother's heart skipped a beat. What did he mean? Had he been here before? What did he know about this place that she didn't? Before she could ask more, The human turned, his back to them now as he began to walk back toward the house. "I think it's time you see the truth," he said over his shoulder. His words cryptic and full of something unspoken. The mother watched him for a moment, her thoughts racing. The unease inside her grew, twisting in her gut. She didn't know what was coming, but she could feel that something was about to change. They had been given a home, a chance at survival, but at what cost? The answers she had been seeking were finally within reach, but would they bring peace? Or would they shatter everything she had come to believe? With a deep breath, the mother took her daughter's hand, and together, they followed the human back into the unknown, ready to face whatever truth awaited them. The days that followed were filled with tension. The house, once a symbol of safety, now felt more like a cage. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind through the windows, seemed to echo with unspoken words, unanswered questions. The mother could no longer ignore the growing sense of unease that had settled deep within her. She had seen the strange look in the human's eyes, heard the sorrow in his voice, and felt the weight of the secrets he was keeping. But it wasn't just his past that haunted her, it was the feeling that this place, this refuge, was not what it seemed. Her daughter had begun to grow restless too, wandering around the house at night, whispering about strange noises. The girl had always been perceptive, and her eyes, once filled with wonder, now held a certain wariness, as if she too could sense the undercurrent of mystery that ran through their new home. The mother had tried to reassure her, but her own heart was heavy with doubt. One night, after dinner, the human had disappeared again. It was becoming a pattern. He would be present for a few hours, engaging with them, sharing stories of far-off lands and distant worlds, but then, without warning, he would retreat into the shadows. No explanation, no words. He would just slip away, like a ghost in the night. The mother had tried to follow him once, but each time, he had noticed her and stopped her before she could get too close. It was as though he didn't want her to know something he was hiding. But tonight, the mother couldn't stand it anymore. She needed answers. She had to know what was happening behind the walls of this house. Behind the calm exterior of the human who had saved them. She waited until the house was quiet. The flickering fire the only light in the room. The air felt thick, as if the entire house were holding its breath. Her daughter was asleep, nestled in the blankets beside her. The mother moved silently, her feet barely making a sound as she crept toward the back door. She had no plan, no clear direction, but her instincts told her that the truth was just beyond her reach, hidden somewhere in the dark woods outside. As she stepped outside, the cold air hit her face like a slap. The snow crunched beneath her boots as she walked into the night. The world around her was still, the trees standing like silent sentinels in the moonlight. She had no idea where she was going, but something inside her urged her forward. She didn't have to go far. As she rounded a corner of the house, she saw him standing at the edge of the trees, staring into the dark forest as if waiting for something. The moonlight cast a pale glow on his face, revealing a look of deep contemplation, something darker than the sadness she had seen before. The mother stopped, her breath catching in her throat. This was it. This was the moment when everything would change. She had to know what he was hiding. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The human didn't move at first. He simply stood there, as if he hadn't heard her. But then, slowly, he turned to face her. His eyes, once filled with kindness, now looked distant, haunted. For a moment, there was silence between them, as if the universe itself were waiting for him to speak. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he said, his voice low and steady, but there was an edge to it now. "But I guess there's no turning back." The mother took a step forward, her heart racing. "What are you hiding from us? What is this place?" The human sighed, a long, heavy sound. "This place is not just a refuge. It's a prison." For me, the words hit her like a shockwave, but before she could respond, he continued, "I've been running for a long time. From my past, from myself. I created this place because I needed to atone for my mistakes. But I've come to realize that there's no escaping what I've done, no matter how far I run." The mother felt a cold chill run down her spine as the truth began to sink in. This house, this life they had built, was not a sanctuary. It was a place of hiding, of guilt. The human took a step toward her, his eyes filled with sorrow. I didn't bring you here to save you. I brought you here to save myself." The mother stood there in stunned silence, her mind spinning. She had thought they were safe, that they had been given a second chance. But in that moment, she realized that the truth was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. The house wasn't just a home, it was a place of refuge for a man who couldn't escape his own demons. And now, they were all caught in the same web of secrets and lies. The silence stretched on, heavy and thick, as the mother stood facing the human. There was no going back now. The truth had been revealed, and with it came the understanding that nothing would ever be the same again. The truth settled in the air like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating. The mother stood frozen, the words of the human echoing in her mind. "I brought you here to save myself." She had believed in the kindness of this place, in the hope that she and her daughter had finally found a home, but now she understood the reality. This wasn't just a sanctuary, it was a prison of guilt, a place where the human had been hiding from his past, and in turn, they had become part of that hidden truth. Her heart pounded in her chest as the weight of his confession pressed down on her. The room around her seemed to close in, the walls thick with the silence between them. She could see the pain in his eyes, the way his shoulders sagged under the burden of his past. He wasn't the man she had imagined, the hero who had saved them, but someone broken. Someone who thought redemption could be earned by offering others what he could never give himself. She swallowed hard, forcing the words past the tightness in her throat. "You brought us here to make up for what you've done. But what about us? What do we get in return?" Her voice was soft, almost fragile, but the hurt was clear. The human had saved them, yes, but at what cost? She had trusted him, trusted this place, and now she felt like a fool. The human didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked away, staring into the dark forest beyond the house. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I thought I could help you. That maybe by giving you a safe place, I could prove that I'm not the person I used to be. But I was wrong. You're not here to help me. You're here because I made a choice. I couldn't let you die out there. Not after seeing what I've seen." But now his voice faltered, as if he was unsure of how to continue. The mother's thoughts were in chaos, torn between the anger rising in her chest and the empathy she still felt for him. He had offered them safety, a chance at a new life, but now everything felt tainted. She had no idea how to move forward. Could they stay here, knowing the truth? Could they continue to trust him, knowing that they had been brought here not for their own benefit, but because of his desperation? "I don't know what to do now," he admitted, his voice raw. "I thought this was enough, but I see it now what I've done. I've tried to save you, but I've only trapped you here with me." The mother's heart softened despite the swirling storm inside her. He wasn't evil, just broken, running from something he couldn't outrun. And yet, it didn't change the reality of their situation. They were trapped, bound by his past, and she had to decide if she could stay in this place that had promised safety, but had also become a cage. Taking a deep breath, she reached for her daughter's hand, squeezing it gently. "We're not here just because of you," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the emotions roiling inside her. "We're here because we need a future too, and maybe we can find a way out of this, together." The human's eyes met hers, and for the first time since they arrived, she saw something like hope flicker in them. The days that followed felt different, charged with an energy that neither the mother nor the human could ignore. The weight of the truth hung between them like a fragile thread, pulling them together in ways they hadn't expected. For the first time, the mother allowed herself to think beyond survival, to think of a future. Could they really stay here, knowing the complexity of the human's past? Could they rebuild their lives in this place, or was it just another form of escape? The human had not disappeared again, but there was still a sense of distance in his eyes, a subtle reluctance to let anyone get too close. He had opened up, but not fully. There were still parts of him locked away, secrets he was unwilling to share, and yet, despite all of that, the mother could see the change in him. He wasn't just hiding anymore, he was fighting for them, for himself. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, the human approached the mother. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, as if he were preparing for something. The air was thick with unspoken words, the silence between them as heavy as the darkness that was settling over the house. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice steady but uncertain. "I know I've kept you in the dark, and for that, I'm sorry. But I want you to understand that I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't expect anything from you. I want to give you a choice." He paused, his eyes searching hers, as if hoping she could understand what he couldn't say. The mother's heart raced. A choice? What choice could he possibly offer? After everything they had learned, everything they had been through, was there even a choice left? "I can't change the past," the human continued, his voice thick with emotion. "But I can change what happens next. I can give you a future, a real future, if you'll let me. You can leave this place, start over somewhere else, or you can stay here with me. But whatever you choose, I won't hold you back. I'll let you decide your own path." The mother stood still, her mind reeling. This wasn't just an offer, it was a lifeline. A chance to choose their own future, a future that wasn't dictated by desperation, survival, or guilt. She looked at her daughter, who was watching them both with wide, uncertain eyes. The girl had grown so much since they had arrived, her face brighter, her spirit stronger. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a child with the possibility of a real life ahead of her. The mother took a deep breath, her decision forming in her heart. "We stay," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "We stay, and we make this place our own." For the first time, the human smiled genuinely, without the shadows of his past clouding his face. He nodded, and in that moment, something between them shifted. The past was still there, lingering like a scar, but it no longer held them captive. The future was theirs to create, together. And so, in the heart of the cold, hidden valley, they found a new beginning, a place where hope could grow, and where, perhaps, they could heal.